Welcome, brave souls, to the chilling depths of horror in detail. Today we're going to share demonic encounter horror stories. First story. My sleep paralysis demon is actually a pretty chill guy. My first memory of sleep paralysis happened when I was 10 years old. I remember because it was the night my parents took me to see Shrek 2 for getting good marks on my report card. It was an evening show, so we got in late and my mom tucked me straight into bed when we got home. It was around 4 a.m. when I woke up. The light from my alarm clock told me that much. I couldn't feel anything, not my pajamas against my skin or the warmth of my head against the pillow. I could feel my arms and legs, but they felt heavy, as if a great weight was holding them down. I tried to call out, but I couldn't. My voice caught in my throat, my lips unable to move. I mustered a weak groan that sounded like a cross between a frog's croak and a zombie's moan. But that was it. I thought I was dead, that this is what death feels like, being awake but unable to move or tell anyone. My mind wrestled with the idea of being placed in a coffin, unable to tell anyone I was still alive in here, unable to move or say anything as the lid closed and they put me in the ground, still alive. My fears subsided as I felt my heart thudding in my chest in response to my near panic attack. I also became aware of my breathing, which slowed as the fear subsided. I calmed a little, thinking it was just a dream. That was when I saw him for the first time. Mr. Brown Sticklegs. He huddled in the corner of the room by my closet. His two oversized red eyes glowed in the dark of my bedroom. His face was like a porcelain mask, white, expressionless, with no mouth or nose, only those two haunting red eyes. When he stood up, his body unfolded like origami until his head reached the ceiling. His neck bent, tilting forward as his true height was greater than the height of my room. His long black torso was covered in shimmering symbols that reflected red in the light of his glowing eyes. He stood on two spindly thin legs that disappeared into the shadows of the room. He made no noise as he moved, seeming to glide as he hovered closer to my bed. His long, thin arms reached down to me as I moaned through paralyzed lips. I could not scream, even though I very much wanted to. His fingers reaching through the darkness, down to my face. Two pointed fingers touched against my eyelids, pushing them closed. I remember his fingertips feeling cool, but not cold. Even though the ends of his fingertips looked sharp, his touch was gentle. "Do not struggle, little one. Sleep, sleep," he said. His voice was so deep I could feel in my chest when he spoke. I did as instructed, convincing myself that it indeed was a dream. Even if it wasn't, the back of my eyelids was more reassuring than looking into those piercing red eyes in his vacant mask of a face. I closed my eyes, wanting it to be a dream, willing it to be a dream. I woke up the next morning, thankfully able to move, walk, and talk. I explained what I saw to my parents, who both agreed that it was a dream. My mom tried floating the idea that something from Shrek 2 scared me, but neither my dad or I bought it. For confirmation, Dad asked that I draw a picture of what I saw for them. As I was drawing, I ran out of black crayon and had to finish his legs with the next darkest color in my crayon box. "Hey there, Mr. Brown Sticklegs," my dad said as I handed him the drawing. "You leave my daughter alone now, you hear?" This is how my sleep paralysis demon ended up with the name Mr. Brown Sticklegs. Giving him a silly name helped take some of the edge off of going to bed the following night. My dad even did a sweep of the room, calling out for him. "Here, Mr. Brown Sticklegs," he said, whistling as if he were calling a dog. It made me giggle, and the whole episode felt more fun than scary. But once they tucked me in and turned off the light, I felt the dread creeping back in. Darkness hits harder when you expect to find something lurking in the shadows. I don't know how long I searched, but I eventually fell asleep. In the weeks following, I searched for Mr. Brown Sticklegs every night as I fell asleep. Even when I went to sleepovers, I would do a cursory check in case he tagged along to a friend's house. As time passed, my searches became less frequent. It was a couple months later, the night before my first day of 5th grade, when I woke up to Mr. Brown Sticklegs straddled over my bed, his empty plate of a face inches from my own. A scream stuck in my throat, coming out sounding like a gush of air releasing from a pool float. "Hush, child," he said. His voice was deep, echoless. I didn't know how he spoke without a mouth, but I heard him nonetheless. I saw that he held a piece of paper in his thin fingers, crumpled on the edges and torn. He held it up to show me. On the page was a pink blob with blue dots for eyes and a droll red smile and stick lines for legs and arms. It was lying on a blue rectangle. "I found a picture you drew of me. So I drew a picture of you," he said. "Do you like it?" I tried nodding, but I couldn't move. I tried answering, but all that came out was the same dry, croaking sound. "Will you draw another one for me? I so liked the first one. You gave me pants. I look good in pants." Again, I was unable to respond or move to give him an answer. He must have been able to read my intent, because he tucked the picture under my pillow before closing my eyes again. When I woke up in the morning, I bolted upright and tossed my pillow off the bed. My heart leapt into my throat when I found the picture. It wasn't a dream. He was real. I went to my desk and began drawing a picture for him, starting with his face and eyes, trying to capture as much detail as I could remember. I had forgotten all about the first day of school until my mom opened my door and found me still in my pajamas. "Lexi," she yelled, startling me as I was coloring in his eyes. "Your bus will be here in less than an hour. Get dressed now." I tucked my picture into my school backpack and got dressed. I finished my drawing at recess that day, using my brand new Crayola 64 pack that I got with my back-to-school supplies. I gave him blue pants this time, figuring he'd like to see himself in jeans. I wrote his name, Mr. Brown's Stick Legs, at the bottom of the picture and drew a smiley face next to it, hoping he'd like his nickname. I flipped the paper over to write him a message on the back. I wanted to ask him questions, but didn't want to anger him since he visited me when I was at my most vulnerable. I wrote out my letter on a separate piece of paper before copying it over to the back of my picture. "Dear Mr. Brown's Stick Legs," that's your name. "My name is Lexi. I am in the 5th grade. What is your name? How old are you? Do you go to school? Why do you visit my bedroom? Why can't I move when you visit? You look scary, but you also seem nice. I hope we can be friends. Love, Lexi. P.S. I hope you like your blue pants." I added another smiley face at the end of the letter, my final emphasis on wanting to be friends. I considered closing with sincerely, but I figured love was a better, friendlier choice. I tucked the picture under my pillow that night, now anxious to see him rather than filled with dread of his reappearance. But like the last time, he did not return the next day, or the day after. The days stretched into weeks, and every morning I found the picture tucked under my pillow from the night before. It wasn't until Thanksgiving break that I saw him again. My eyes opened as the morning sun poked through the blinds of my bedroom. His body didn't look any different in the light. In fact, his black skin seemed darker, absorbing the sun's rays without giving anything back. His eyes seemed wider than before. If he had a mouth, I would have figured he was smiling. In his slender fingers was the picture I drew for him. "Hello, Lexi," he said. "Thank you for the picture. I do look good in blue pants." I wanted to smile, but, well, sleep paralysis. He flipped the picture over to the side with my letter. "I will answer your questions the best I can. I do not have a name, not one you could ever pronounce, but I am happy for you to call me Mr. Brown's Stick Legs. As for my age, I exist outside of the construct of time. Therefore, I am ageless. I do not go to school, nor do I know what school is. Why do I visit you? I visit to feed on the energy of your soul." My breath quickened as a mute groan exited my teeth. I wanted to run, wanted to get away from him, but I was pinned down, unable to move. He sensed my uneasiness and tried to calm me by patting my forehead. "Let me explain. Have you been to the ocean? It appears vast, almost limitless as you stare out into the blue water, with no visible land on the other side. In my mind, I was standing on a beach. I felt the salty ocean breeze against my face as I looked out over the massive body of water. The waves crashed at my feet. I felt the rush of water over them, followed by the trickle of sand and pebbles as the water drew back. Your soul is like an ocean, child. Vast, limitless, undefinable by words to your understanding. I take only a tiny sip, a single glass of water from a vast ocean. I am not one who could consume an entire ocean. Dark clouds formed over the water as I stared at the white-capped waves. The clouds unleashed a heavy downpour, turning the horizon gray as rain fell from the sky over the ocean. Just as the rain falls over the ocean, your soul can replenish itself by more than I could ever consume, not even in 1,000 of your years. Does that make you feel better? On the beach in my mind's vision, I nodded. In my bedroom, he nodded back at me. Good. As for your last question, why you cannot move, we are meeting at a point outside of your time where your world and mind touch. Your physical body cannot move here, but if you persist, you can learn to speak to me with your mind, and I will answer your questions in exchange for your drawings. You can draw pictures of whatever you like. I want to know more of your world. In my mind, I nodded again. This knowledge is a gift so we can understand one another more. I am not one who would hurt you. He pressed his fingertips to my eyelids again, closing them. In my mind's eye, I was still on the beach, but the sun was setting and no stars were visible through the rain. I drifted back to sleep to the sound of falling rain. The next morning, I asked my parents for a sketchbook and colored pencils. They tried to hold me off until Christmas, but since I spent most of my afternoons and weekends drawing pictures up in my room, Dad let me open one of my gifts a week early, a Strathmore sketchbook with 100 pages with a 50-pack of Crayola colored pencils. I started by drawing the rest of my family, Mom, Dad, my little brother Tommy, our cat Libby, and even though he had died, our dog Pancakes. Next I drew our house, then our car, then my school. I kept drawing anything I could think of, trees, birds, insects, until my sketchbook was full. I used my allowance to purchase more books so I could keep drawing. I honed my craft, redoing my earlier drawings in greater detail. My thoughts considered his wording. I am not one who could consume an entire ocean. I wanted to ask him if there were those who could, but I wasn't sure if I wanted to know such things. Mr. Brown's stick legs didn't return until my freshman year of high school. To him, it wasn't like any time had passed. I read up on lucid dreaming in the time between visits, so that when he returned, I would be better capable of talking to him. He held my book in his hands, flipping through my drawings, doting over the increased refinement of my drawing skills. I had filled a dozen sketch pads and upgraded from Crayola to Prismacolor Premier pencils for my drawings. His biggest surprise was when after he complimented my drawings, I spoke to him. "Thank you," I said, seeing the words in my mind as I spoke them aloud. If he had a surprised expression, his eyes showed it. "You have been very busy, child," he said. "Do you have any questions you would like to ask?" I hesitated, but finally formed the words in my mind. "Are there creatures who can consume an entire ocean?" He didn't respond right away, which made me think I had not asked properly. As I asked him a second time, he put a finger to my lips as if to shush me. "There are those who can. They are known as the Dark Ones. They are capable of consuming entire souls, emptying them out, leaving them dry and barren. You should not fear them, but you should also not provoke them." His eyes curved downward, as if concerned or afraid. "What do they look like?" I asked. In my mind, my visions were filled with images of great, terrible creatures. Spiders taller than the Empire State, building on thin, spindly legs of shadow and smoke. Tentacled monsters in the seas, lofting blue whales like they were toys, ripping them to shreds with their curved, chitinous beaks. Great, ghastly flying creatures that knocked over orchards and forests with the beat of their leathery wings. "I showed you only because you ask," Mr. Brown's stick leg said, "but it is best that we don't talk or think about them. Let them be." I nodded in my mind. He leaned forward and pressed his plate like face to my head, as if to kiss me on the forehead, which was odd since he didn't have a mouth. Then, as usual, he closed my eyes and I drifted back to sleep. My life took a downer during the latter years of high school. My dad lost his job, and when the search for a new one dragged on, he turned to drinking to cope with his failure. He wasn't abusive, but he wasn't fun to be around either. In the months following, my parents would hush their arguing when I entered the room, greeting me with smiles as if nothing were wrong. That lasted until the day I came home from school to them fighting over a foreclosure notice from a bank. We moved out over a weekend from our home in the suburbs to an apartment on the other side of town. I internalized my feelings during that time. I withdrew from my friends and school activities besides the art club, the only one we could still afford. I saw my friends driving to school and hanging out while I rode the bus, too poor and too far out of the way to join in. My taste began to change as well. Out was the bubblegum pop of Katy Perry, Kesha, and Taylor Swift. Instead, I listened to Pierce the Veil, Sleeping with Sirens, and Bring Me the Horizon. My clothes and makeup became darker, more black t-shirts and skirts with black eyeliner and black fingernail polish. Mom called it my goth phase, not that she understood. My drawings became darker too. I moved from colored pencils to charcoal, drawing skulls and gothic-looking cemeteries as my passion for drawing animals and flowers waned. I also drew the dark ones in great detail, exactly how I remembered them in my mind's eye. Mr. Brown's stick legs visited me again a month after we moved into the apartment. He looked more at home in my room of blacklight posters and death metal bands than he did in my previous room. His eyes were dim, not the vibrant red as they were before. He stared at me as I lay in bed, unable to move. He moved inches from my face as I heard his words in my mind. Your soul tastes different now. He didn't speak of my drawings. I worried that he might, especially since I had been drawing the dark ones. Not only drawing them, but thinking about them and what type of damage they could do if they were to wake. He seemed sad for me, although reading his expression was difficult with no face. He patted my forehead like before, but didn't close my eyes before leaving as he used to. My life continued its spiraling path like a bottle rocket with a broken stick. My parents didn't talk outside of short conversations about which bills to pay and which ones to ignore. Each night, Dad disappeared into a bottle while Mom disappeared online to chat with a male Facebook friend she knew from high school. The thing about rock bottom is that it's often a disguise for a trapdoor that drops you to an even lower depth than you thought possible. The first bottom came when my father died. Drove off the road into a gravel pit late at night with an empty bottle of bourbon in the passenger seat. I cried but felt hollow. I felt hollow. Even when Mom tried to hold me, I felt nothing inside, not sadness, not guilt, not anything. I disappeared into my sketchbooks, drawing even darker, more disturbing images. Death, dismemberment, vividly accurate vivisections of the cute animals I used to enjoy drawing. My friends no longer talked to me, which was fine because I didn't want to talk to them anymore anyways. I found people to hang out with, not friends, but people who could get me access to moments of chemical-induced euphoria to forget about life for a while. Just like that, the trapdoor opened, dropping me to a new rock bottom of addiction. One thing I had that in common with my dad, but instead of falling into a bottle, I fell into a needle. I stole money from my mom's purse to feed my habits. Not that she noticed. She was busy with her old Facebook friend who had moved from online acquaintance to nightly sleepover companion. When the time came to begin my senior year, I didn't bother going back. I kept drawing, filling entire sketchbooks with the dark images that reflected my bleak outlook on life. The dark ones were prevalent subjects during this period of my life. I drew them feasting on humanity, raking flesh from bone in their jagged teeth behind lips of smoke. I came home one night to find my mom and her new male friend in the middle of a fight. It was different from her fights with Dad, more violent, more physical. When he raised his hand at me for trying to intervene, I decided it was time to bolt. I left home, hitching rides with anyone with a set of wheels I could manage to put up with for short periods of time. My preference leaned toward those with access to the chemical release I craved. The more I could numb, the more I could escape. I found certain drug combinations had similar effects to sleep paralysis, where my mind's ability to control my body's action became severed. In those moments of numbed paralysis, I'd see Mr. Brown's stick legs watching from afar as I dulled the pain. I saw what I perceived as the dark ones too, But they weren't hiding in the shadows like Mr. Brown's stick legs did. They were the shadows. I called out to them as well, for in those moments I wanted nothing more than to be hollowed out and empty, a void so dark no pain could ever penetrate it. When they didn't answer, I called out to Mr. Brown's stick legs, but he would vanish every time. Perhaps it was all just a drug-fueled hallucination. Overdosing was never my intention. I was pushing too much, try to find the edge of the void after feeling so low, so very low, searching for that something extra to filter out the background noise. I took it too far, giving myself a near-lethal dose. At one moment, I was lying next to strangers on a stained mattress in an abandoned warehouse. Then came the initial rush of euphoric bliss. And then nothing. Whoever I was traveling with at the time dumped me on the curb in front of the ER, making me someone else's problem. This was my rock bottom moment, although at the time, it felt more like free fall. I spent 3 weeks in a coma. I was aware of my surroundings and could hear the doctors and nurses as they checked my vitals and tended to my cleanliness and upkeep, but I couldn't move or speak. At the end of my 3rd week in the ICU on an incubator, I looked up to find Mr. Brown's stick legs hovering over me, his round red eyes peering through the darkness. "What have you done to yourself, child?" His voice spoke inside my mind. In my mind, I was beside him, standing in the middle of a vast salt-flat desert. The ground was cracked and dry in a hexagonal pattern that stretched in all directions. "This is your soul now. There is nothing left to drink." I heard my beep of my heart rate monitor back in my hospital room speed up as fear entered my mind. I called out to the Dark Ones, I said. I asked for them to come. They emptied me out, emptied my soul. "No, my child, you did this. You have not replenished, you have only consumed. And now, nothing remains." I dropped to my knees in the middle of the salt as I felt a rumbling deep inside the hollow pit of my stomach. I leaned forward on my arms, but they were no longer my arms. They were pitch black and empty. I could feel them, but when I looked at them, they were empty voids of smoke and shadow. I stood up on my legs, but they were no longer my legs. The darkness swirled up my torso and down my arms. The emptiness inside me consumed my entire body until only my head remained. What's happening to me? I heard a snap as my arms and legs split, forming 8 black, spindly, thin legs. I collapsed onto them, unable to support myself. Mr. Brown's stick legs glided down in front of my face, his eyes inches from my own. As I told you, child, only the Dark Ones have the ability to consume an entire ocean of a soul. That is your fate. That is what you will become. Back in the room, my heart rate monitor crashed to a flat line. I felt the cold darkness swirl up my neck to my head as the void consumed me. I was aware of the nurses and doctors huddled around my body, prepping the crash cart, but all I felt was the cold consuming what was left of me. "Help me," I uttered. "Please." My physical body jolted from the electric paddles, but I felt nothing, only the cold darkness. A needle injected into my foreline as they recharged for another burst of electricity. Still I felt nothing. Only cold, only darkness, only the vast emptiness of the void. Mr. Brown's stick legs tilted his head as he stared through his unblinking red eyes. He leaned forward, pressing his plate like face to my forehead. I felt a vibration against my skin, followed by the tingling sensation of heat returning. The darkness receded back down my arms and legs. As he pulled back, the red in his eyes had diminished. A gift for the girl who gave me pants. A tear formed in my eye. It rolled down my cheek and fell onto the parched landscape below. Before I could say anything, an electronic jolt coursed through my body, pulling me away from the salt-flat expanse and back to my hospital room. The sinus rhythm of my heart rate monitor returned to normal. I felt the cool gel of the defibrillator paddles against my chest. I remember squeezing the hand of one of the attending nurses who smiled down at me. "Look who's awake." I cried, but it was different than before. I felt the pain I had long been avoiding, but I felt something else as well. I felt grateful, and I felt a sense of hope I hadn't known in a long time. It was a long road back from the darkness, but the thing about the road to recovery is that, like a road, it leads to a destination. After years of listless drifting towards the void, having a destination was an important first step in finding self-love. I reconnected with my mother, who was struggling with her own form of the darkness. We leaned on one another, talking and going to therapy as we worked through the issues that drove us apart. After my release from the hospital, I moved back home with her Facebook friend long gone. I got my GED and used my many sketchbooks as a portfolio to get an apprenticeship at a tattoo parlor. I've been clean for 4 years now, and it feels good to smile again. Granted, I still prefer Pierce the Veil to anything from Katy Perry's catalog, and my tattoos and jewelry have more skulls than fluffy bunnies, but that's all on the surface. I no longer crave the darkness to consume me. I often think about the vision with Mr. Brown Sticklegs on the salt flats that night in the hospital. I had not seen him since that night, and I often wonder about the state of my soul since that day. Has it replenished, or is it still the dried-up, barren wasteland that he took me to on the night? Last night, around 3 in the morning, I finally got my answer. I woke up with a heaviness on my chest, arms, and legs. At first, I felt the grips of fear grabbing hold, much like the first time I experienced it. But then in the dark corner of my room, I saw glowing red eyes staring back at me from the shadows. In spite of my sleep paralysis, couldn't help but smile when I heard his voice call out to me. Second story, I am a demon and I need your help. I'm a monster. I don't mean that in the sense that I'm a terrible person or anything like that. I mean it in the sense that I'm a monstrous hell creature that feeds off human fear and misery. You may be wondering why I'm writing this to you. It's because I need your help. I'll get to the specifics in a moment, but first I'd like to explain why I need your help at all. About 1600 years ago, some practitioners of black magic discovered an ancient Latin text and summoned me to this plane of existence to do their bidding. Only one of the warlocks, Adriel, I think his name was, messed the ritual up so that I was no longer bound to do their will. Apparently, they wanted me to enact an apocalypse that would destroy the current world order and set them up as leaders. I decided that was a bit much, so I just slaughtered them all instead. I might have enacted the apocalypse anyway, but Adriel's screw-up caused me to be summoned with only a tiny fraction of my power. Even so, I left Adriel alive, mostly because he seemed like a good lad. He went on to become a baker later on, if I recall correctly. I burned the summoning scroll and went back to my plane of existence, where I had been tormenting lost souls with my kids. However, it seems like I should have killed Adriel after all, because unbeknownst to me, he had transcribed the summoning ritual and bequeathed it to his children after he died. The scroll was lost for centuries, until one of Adriel's modern descendants discovered it in his great-grandfather's attic while preparing for an after-death estate sale. He decided to get it translated out of curiosity, and afterwards he decided that the contents would make a great creepypasta. He even included the original Latin incantation for flavor. This was a few years ago when the fad of ritualistic stories was still booming. To my great surprise and distress, my summoning instructions became somewhat popular. At this point, I hadn't been to Earth in over 1,000 years, and I had been summoned by the most powerful of dark wizards. Now, every few days I was being whisked out of hell by some drunk teenagers shining flashlights up at their face in their bathroom, trying to scare each other. You see, a long time ago, when literacy was exceptionally rare, my summoning ritual was extremely complicated. But in the days of booming literacy rates and Google Translate, it's become absurdly easy. Luckily for me, though, Adriel didn't just up when he summoned me. He messed up when he transcribed the ritual as well, so that I'm not bound to anyone's will when I get summoned. That's a good thing, because drunk human teenagers usually ask me to do some pretty weird stuff. However, I still only get summoned with a tiny fraction of my full power, so I usually just terrify them to their very core before whisking back to hell, so that they won't bother me again. That was until Lucy. Last month, some 6-year-old girl found my creepypasta summoning ritual and decided to try it out. By chance, she got the ending right. I suppose it was bound to happen eventually. It was only a small mistake that Adrielle made in the transcription after all. The problem is that she's not actually evil in any sense of the word. She's managed to summon a demon capable of bringing about the apocalypse, and she has me do things like materialize cotton candy and puppies out of thin air. Her parents are always flabbergasted when they arrive to pick her up from school, and she's surrounded by at least 8 puppies. At this point, I don't even care about destroying humans and feasting on their souls anymore. I'd really just like to go back home. So I'm asking for your help. I need someone here to complete my banishing ritual so I can go back to hell and live in peace. It's actually quite simple. You just draw a pentagram in a mirror, light 7 candles, and read the following words. Demona Magister ab Antiquo. Dono tibi mea corpus, gratia liberabo vos. Ego vivere invite vos intra corpus mea. Ego imolo animum mea. Nos vani humani creaturi. Third story. I am an exorcist. These are my most terrifying experiences. I am an exorcist, a priest, of sorts. I never went to formal training to become a priest, but a wonderful friend and mentor of mine, whom I will call Father James, taught me. I won't use his real name because he was very well known. He taught exorcism courses at the Vatican regularly, and he became a prominent leader in the diocese where we lived. He has since passed away, and I don't want to do or say anything to taint his sterling and impressive legacy. Although I was raised as such, I'm not Catholic. I do believe in God and the devil, but not as the Catholics do. After my experience dying, a good family friend from my mother's parish told me about Father James. I sought him out and told him my story. He was certain that I had been given a special gift from heaven. Over the course of almost 3 decades, we became close friends. I guess I should tell you about when I died. When I was 15, I developed an awful infection in my leg that led to a serious fever. I don't remember the car ride, but I do remember going into the hospital and later going into a room. The person taking me back must have told me a joke because my memory is of laughing. The next thing I knew, I was standing next to my gurney, which was still proceeding down the hallway, but very, very slowly. So slowly you almost wouldn't know it was moving unless you focused directly at it. Even then, it was hard to tell. I instantly marveled at my astounding eyesight. I could see everyone in the hospital, as now the walls, floors, and ceilings around me were almost completely transparent. I could also see into people's bodies. I could see their organs down to a microscopic level. I watched blood pump through their veins like molasses in a blizzard. That wasn't all. If I focused intently, I could see people miles away with perfect accuracy, all frozen in time. As I looked at people, I could see their presence, their intentions, I suppose, whether they were good people or bad people. It's weird to explain it, but each person was engulfed in a different glow. Most people have relatively white auras, and I could tell they were good inside, but few people had very, very dark auras, which concentrated as pure, inescapable blackness inside of them. I could feel it emanating from them. The darkness cast horrific images into my mind, or filled me with terrible emotions just to be near them. It was as if they sucked the life and well-being out of people around them without anyone being aware it's happening. The other things I saw were more terrifying. I saw creatures. They varied in size, but as I glanced around, I noticed they came in several varieties. There were creatures that were small with wings, or had the remnants of where wings once were, that looked somewhat like gargoyles, but they were disgusting to look at. One type of creature consisted only of a torso that floated in the air, focused on and centered above people below. Every creature that I saw was absolutely, horrifyingly, terrifyingly hideous. Just to look at them made you want to run and hide. They were preying on people by influencing their thoughts and trying to control their minds. I saw a man that was wearing what looked like a very expensive suit and tie. I was amazed at the degree of darkness that enveloped him. His aura was darker than any person I had yet seen, so much so that his eyes were pitch black to me. I saw a small demon perched on his shoulder, whispering into his ear as he was in the midst of smiling and waving at someone. I heard the little devil hissing, "They can't harm me. They can't even touch me. And once they finally kill that bitch, I won't have anything to worry about." A man stood in the hallway talking on a public phone. Everyone's still frozen in time. A demon levitated above him, only consisting of a torso, arms, and no head. He was holding two long, black ropes, one in each hand, that came out of the crown of the man's head. It reminded me of the old Western stagecoaches that used reins to lead horses. Suddenly, I felt a massive jolt of electricity course through me that sent pain through my whole body and made me so rigid that I couldn't move. The demons all turned and looked at me. One let loose an awful howl, a terrible, horrific sound, and pointed at me. Two demons immediately turned and started moving toward me at marvelous speed. The moment before they would have dashed into me, I awoke in a hospital bed. Several people stood over me, somewhat chaotic, fidgeting with a mask on my face and other such things. It said my heart stopped. Something due to my temperature and blood pressure. We never really got a straight answer about it anyway. After some time I recovered, but now I could sense demons around me, and it was always terrifying. I knew where they were and could discern what they were doing, either to me or to others. I could also see demons from time to time when they grew powerful enough to manifest themselves in our dimension. Although that didn't happen often, when it did, it was extremely dangerous and terribly destructive. Only these powerful demons are strong enough to possess someone. But for a demon possessing a person, it takes tremendous endurance and power. That power, like all things, can be weakened and broken. For the most part, demons are weak. They are able to whisper in our ears and influence our minds. But there are many things that can prevent them from affecting us or reverse the influence already established. They watch us. They know our weaknesses. They seek us out and prey upon us. Unless you give yourself over to the ocean of evil around you, odds are you will never encounter a demon. Now that we have established all that, I will tell you of my first true exorcism experience. Fourth story. There is a demon that lives in my fireplace. There is a demon that lives in my fireplace. That's a strong way to begin my story, but I think it is important that you know the truth. I live alone in the forest, a long way from civilization. I chose this life, or it chose me, but no matter the reason, I live, breathe, and survive a long way from anyone. I spend my day hunting, fishing, trapping, and preserving food. I'm sure you've seen TV shows about the lifestyle. Pick any weekend on Discovery or Science, and you'll find shows that tell about others who have chosen this life. I first came here about 25 years ago. I was young, idealistic, and adventurous. I'm still all those things, but I'm also something more now. After years of independence and solitude, I met someone. She was young, idealistic, and free-spirited. To be honest, I was lonely, and she was too. She met me when I went to town on one of my few trips for staples. Even in the backwoods, you still can't produce everything for yourself. Salt, sugar, coffee, knives, axes, sleds. Sure, you can't make a few of these things, and if you really tried, maybe you could produce all of it for yourself, but it is much simpler to trap and trade furs for these things. Before you get too judgy, have you ever tried to make your own gunpowder? Have you ever tried to smelt brass or lead that you dug from the earth? No? Then don't judge me for trading furs for supplies. But back to my story. When I first met my wife, she was a cashier. It was the typical sitcom romance. I was the hot young mountain man with my furs, sled, and hankering for salt pork, and she was the college kid working a summer job for her uncle. I have to admit the attraction started off hot and heavy. What can I say? We were young, fresh and playful. Maybe playful is the wrong word. Hell, we just liked each other. It was what it was, and it was fun. We married, maybe too young, and she decided to spend a winter in the cabin with me. It took a serious amount of additional time and effort to double my winter supplies to support us both, but it was worth it. Besides the obvious comfort in the bed, the additional help around the cabin made the winter fly by. She learned quickly to cook, clean, prepare game, and although never a pro, she learned to skin and saw hides for me. I admit these are some great days. By the next winter, we were parents to our first child, Gloria. She was everything we could have hoped for, and like two kids in love, we could not have been happier. We worked together to lay in additional supplies and made preparations for an infant to spend the winter in the cabin with us. Once again, the winter was the best. We made love, spent time with Gloria, and we did all the things young couples do, which is why our son, Mark, was born that spring. The weeks turned to months and the seasons passed. I could not have been happier, and I believe she was happy too. But this is not that kind of story. As I said, there's a demon that lives in my fireplace. I first saw this demon before I met my wife. It was late in the winter. I had been snowed in for a month. The canned goods were still plentiful, but the snow had gotten so deep that even the windows of the cabin had become covered. Sure, I had gone outside many times to remove snow from the roof. I used my handmade snowshoes to traipses across the ocean of snow, but it was a losing battle. Soon it was just me, canned goods, and firewood inside the cabin. That's when he came. It was so cold outside. The cabin was barely warm. The fire, although it was burning, it didn't warm the room. The chill, the cold, it was so pervasive that the frost was on the inside of the window when he first spoke. "I see you," he said. I was so startled that at first I thought it was the wind. I turned to look around the room when a log rolled, and the sparks formed his face. "I see you," he said again. This time, I knew it was not the wind. I have to be honest, and I'm not sure if I screamed, cried out, or simply said, "What the hell?" But I know I was scared. I blurted out, "What did you say?" "I see you," he said again. Through the sparks, I could almost make out a sardonic smile from the face in the coals. I knew this couldn't be real, but there he was. He smiled. "What the hell?" I yelled, and I began to back away from the fire. I only stopped when I tripped backward over a stool and landed by the door. The door had been snowed in for a week. I did not even think about the fact that I could not leave. I was just scared shitless and trying to run away. Flight or fight, right? No, it was get out. As I stumbled to my feet, he laughed. It was a demon laugh. Not demonic, that's cliché. It was the sound of a demon laughing. He sounded like Rob Lowe in a teeny bopper movie laughing at the nerd who spilled a Pepsi. It was a self-assured laugh that said, "I'm better than you, and I am in control, but you still amuse me, kid." I didn't know what to do next. Let's be honest. Who would know what to do when first confronted with a demon? Would you? "What are you?" I asked. "Are you a demon?" "Good question," he said as the sparks popped, and his teeth moved in the flame. "I guess that is the best description I could give about me." "Why are you here?" I stammered. I, honestly, had no other thought. I have never been particularly religious. I mean, sure, we all have seen TV shows, movies, and read books, but I couldn't really think of anything else to ask. "I need a favor," he said as a few more sparks drifted up and into the chimney. I felt the room grow colder as he spoke. It was beyond cold. It was soaking into my bones. The sparks, the coals, the flames, they gave off no heat. They seemed to take the heat away as if sucking the heat from the room and drawing in the outside air. I shivered. I know my voice was quivering when I spoke, but I had to ask, "What favor?" "You're gonna die, you know," the demon whispered. His voice was crisp, clean, and seemed to come from each spark as a log rolled in the fireplace. The temperature in the cabin continued to plummet as I stammered out, stupidly, "What? How do you know?" "When?" His voice sounded like the steam from a fresh log covered in snow, placed on a hot fire. "Because you're out of firewood, the door is snowed shut, and there is nothing but these few logs remaining. But I can save you." My mind was still adjusting to the fact that I was talking to a fire in my fireplace, but the shape, the form, the demon was clearer than ever in the sparks, the flames, the smoke. He was real. This wasn't some can of spoiled salmon causing an hallucination. A demon was speaking to me from the fireplace. I didn't deny his premise. I knew my fire was all that was keeping me warm and the winter was going to win. Looking back, I know I should have questioned him. I should have tried to argue. I should have denied his presence, but he made sense. I was cold. I knew, without a doubt, that I was not going to have enough firewood to make it through the winter. No matter how much food I had to eat, nothing beats temperatures into the -30s. The King Goods were only edible if they were not frozen. Grease is no good when it's a lump of ice. Ow! What do you want from me? Is all I could whisper. I didn't know what else to say or ask. You'll know the cost when it is time to pay it. If you agree to my price, I'll save you, he said as the sparks rose and another log rolled backwards. I swear, looking back on this, he was smiling. A twisted, know-it-all Rob Lowe smile. I hate him for that. But as I said, that's hindsight. I was cold. I knew he was right. I didn't know what else to do. In a moment of clarity, I saw the snow, the ice, the drifts, the pitiful pile of firewood, and I could see it all in an instant. I was going to die. I didn't even think of another option. Later, I would ask myself if I really had a moment of clarity or if it was the demon in my head. I'll never really know. I simply agreed. I awoke later with my head against the door of the cabin, a stool overturned, and the sounds of ice melting outside my door. I'm not sure how long I slept. Was it sleep? I don't know. I just know where I was when I opened my eyes. There was no fire in the fireplace. There was no demon. There was no bitter cold either. The winter had broken, and I rose up on my sore limbs and stood. I stretched out my muscles and shook away the image of my fireplace talking to me. It took minutes, hours, days for me to shake away the image of my fireplace and its demon talking to me. But each time I took a minute to question myself, I felt a pit in my stomach open up. I could not convince myself it was just a dream or a head injury. Somehow, I knew the fireplace had a demon inside, and it expected something from me. The years passed, and I met my wife. We had children, and the cabin became our winter home. This year, we spent the winter together, and the weather turned bitter again. The firewood burned too cold and too fast. The canned goods are running low, and the snow is drifting deeper against the windows. A week ago, while my family slept, shivering in their beds, I stoked the fire and tried to rake the coals. Something spoke to me. I'm not sure where the voice came from, but I know it said, "It's time. Pay me." My children's mother has been missing now for days. The cold is seeping back into the room. The firewood is not enough to chase away the cold. I am slowly turning a nice plump roast on a spit above the fire. The smell of almost pork meets my nose. I can hear a happy, satisfied sound as the fat is dripping onto the coals. There is a voice, light and sparking, in the fire. He seems to be content, but the children will wake soon, and he will probably expect me to pay in full. Fifth story. I met the devil. I met the devil once. I know it sounds silly, even insane. Heck, if someone told me that, I would think he's off his meds. It still doesn't change the fact it happened. It was a typical Sunday morning, sunny, and just the right temperature for a picnic. That is, if you don't have to fill in for a friend in an appointment. My car broke down, so I took a cab. I should have taken a subway that day. So, where do you want to go today? 1342 12th Street, please. Where are you going in this fine day? Have to fill in for a friend. That secretary over there is hot. I know how you look at her every day. What the hell are you implying? I know who you are, John Smith. In fact, I know your darkest secrets. Who are you? Some people call me the devil, trickster, the oncoming darkness, fallen angel, but I like Lucifer better. Don't worry, I'm not on official business today. So, just relax, and you will get to your destination. Thinking he was nuts, I asked, if you really are Lucifer, then prove it. I know how you look at your son. Thinking he's not going to have a great future. I know what you think of your friend, that he's a douchebag, and you wish you never met him right now. Do you want any more examples? I quickly thought, either he's some kind of mind reader, or he is what he claims himself to be. So try to look at him from the mirror. He looked like he was in his 20s, not thin, more like a slender build. Women would probably think PF him as handsome. He was wearing sunglasses and what looked like a leather jacket. After trying to see what's behind those sunglasses, I felt, you could say, vibe. I think those eyes were the source of it, because when I felt that aura that gave me goosebumps, he laughed. I know what you're thinking right now, that I'm some kind of mind reader. Look at me. Do you really think I'm some lowly psychic that reads minds? Do you really think I'm not the devil? Those last words were I in my head. It was like for a split second, I was in a burning, agonizing world. Even after he said that, I could still feel the burning pain, actually even days after it. It's still there, just telling me that wasn't a dream. Plus the watch he gave me, but let's get to that later. WWY me? Because you chose this cab. Of all those insignificant pests that would chose this cab, you were the first. Now ask me a question. You were talking to the dark prince himself. Ask me a question and I will answer truthfully, but choose wisely because sometimes the truth is too much for your simple, primitive minds to understand and you will burn up and die. Now come on, ask me a question. I was talking to Lucifer himself. Even if he is the devil, he is an ancient being, and well, why not? How do I know you are not lying? Simple, you don't. Great. Does heaven and hell exist? They do, but not as you pests think they are. Explain. Heaven is a hive of personal heavens, with everyone having their own perfect place or moment, with roads linking them. In the center, where he resides, our God resides. It's simply blissful. Now, hell, think of as your personal heaven gone wrong. I made sure that everyone there has their minds blown, sometimes literally. The souls being tortured by their nightmares and sliced and diced. And way they are at their breaking point. You are back at the starting point. I can say what hell would be for you, you know. I was thinking this was some kind of trick, the devil liking heaven. Not angry at God. I was tempted to know what my personal hell was, but I chose not. I guess it was a good choice. Heaven is good for everyone, you know, even for the devil. Why do you think I am forbidden from going there? God is like a father to me, you know. And then when I couldn't, and you worms were made as the perfect beings, he just threw me out like I was some worthless trash. All because of humanity. Well, I guess I gave it back to him. Hard. What do you mean? How do you think demons exist? I just imagine one and poof, there it is. No, you stupid primate. Only God can do that. I use what I can get. I give the damn souls a choice to hurt their comrades, and they break so fast. And they start dicing, slashing, torturing, and losing their humanity in the process. When they are done, they are MY creation, the twisted and evil version of humanity. What they truly are. By that I was freaking out, our nightmares, demons. They're us. I wanted to get out of there to finish this, to get this over with alive. Don't worry. Your body will be fine. Now go on. You have more questions to answer. I can feel them beating on your mind. Those dark questions, one of them is going to kill you. So pick wisely, where is God? He is out there. He lost hope in humanity. He stopped creating. I guess he became tired of all your whining. Right now he is, He's talking to someone in the subway. It's what he does now. He helps the ones that truly deserve it. Don't get your hopes up. You don't truly deserve it. Right now you're actually tipped to my realm. It's going to be fun breaking you, really fun. I was almost thinking of suicide at that point. He just stares at me with those eyes, those sneaky and cruel eyes. He was having fun at this. He was toying with me. I had to get out, so I tried to take a dangerous step. Do you make deals? And how are they made? Not many people dare to ask me that. You actually didn't go insane yet. Most people by now are trying to get out or praying to God, but you just ask humanity's curiosity at its peak while I use your souls. Human souls are like a reality power plant. I can shift reality and create life out of the small piece of creation God left you with. And then I take your souls to my realm and have fun. I usually let my servants do it though. They got really smart at doing deals, you know, your friend. Lucy, she has made one of those deals. And in 2 months her time will be up. One last question, but be smart about it. One last question, the place where I messed up. Why am I going to hell? The forbidden question, it was going to happen sooner or later. Well, don't you know, in exchange to forbidden knowledge, I get the right to have your soul. And you just asked a forbidden question, you worm. You almost survived this. I said your body was going to be fine. Never said anything about your soul. Now continue with your life, and the second the watch in your hand stops, your heart will too. Goodbye. I opened my eyes, and it was night. I was so relieved. It was a dream. Tick-tock, tick-tock. I opened my hand. There was the watch, that golden watch, the only thing between me and hell. I was going to die, I don't know. And so I put this story up for you guys. Knowledge of the price of my soul. It's funny, last month Lucy disappeared. One last warning. He is out there, and I found out the only way to never meet him is. Thanks a lot for watching the video. Till the end, subscribe to Horror in Detail for more videos. Drop your suggestions in comment section.